we're going to go ahead and start our final media availability before practice. We've now been joined by Chase Elliott. We'll take questions for Chase. If you have one, go ahead and raise your hand. And to kick us off, we'll start in the back with Lee Spencer.
Lee Spencer, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio and Catchfence.com. How do you see the battle for the regular season title playing out with four drivers still in the hunt?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously really, really tight between, Kyle and I and Denny and Tyler and William, really is not far out of it either. I mean, there's still a lot of racing left. It's kind of how I look at it. A lot can happen in that period of time. So I think it's going to force all of us to, be really good. You're going to have to be really solid, and you're probably going to have to win a race or two between now and the end of it to have a legitimate chance without other guys having problems, which I just don't really see 4 or 5 guys having, a ton of issues between now and then. Not all of them, at least.
Have you and Alan discussed the strategy, because it is 15 bonus points on the line?
Oh yeah, we're trying to win it. We're trying to run as good as we can to accumulate as many points as possible to win the 15 points. I mean, that's all that matters. The regular season championship is really meaningless. It's just the points. So that they could really just call it 15 points, and it would be the exact same as what it is now.
All right, Dustin, I believe you had a question.
Dustin Albino, Jace, kind of right off that, though, Chase, you mentioned a couple years ago when you did win it that it kind of carried you through a couple of the rounds. So,
for sure.
So how important is it to win it and get those points?
Yeah, I mean, it carried us the whole way, honestly. I mean, there was no shot we were ever making the Final Four without the amount of points that we accumulated. We had fortunately had a really good first half of the year, and that was the same year, right? That was in 22, yeah. So, yeah, we just had a really good first half of the year, and then we ran really bad those last 8.5 weeks, and without those points, we would have been long out of it, in my view. So, mathematically, I'm not exactly sure where we would have been, obviously, but judging off the way we ran, we need to be a lot better, and that certainly helped to have, some points to lean on, because we would have been, it would have been really, really tough without that. So they can mean a lot. You hope that you're running good enough that you don't need them, is the goal that everyone has, but, to have 8 straight weeks that nothing goes wrong is probably not realistic.
All right, we'll go Nate and then Bob.
Nate Ryan, ABC Sports. Chase, knowing that this track has so much history with your family, with your dad having won here, what's it like to NASCAR to go back to the oval and for you kind of have this second chance to maybe to win it, which I'm sure a lot of veterans probably wondered if you guys were ever going to get this chance again?
Yeah, for sure. When we left the oval, I didn't really think a ton of it, but I do feel like coming back, it does mean more being on the oval for me personally. And I think if this race has always been important because it was one of the few races that I was old enough to be around that Dad had won. So I think because of that, it's always been just a little more special than the rest, and certainly, one of the few wins that I was around for, but more than that, one of the few, it was the only marquee, major, if you will, win that I was around for. So it's always been really special, and I always knew how much that race. I still don't know, to be honest with you. I haven't gotten a straight answer, You're not going to get a straight answer from the NASCAR front, which is fine. But it just, it was a bummer. I mean, whether the zone was too short or the zone wasn't short enough, we had made X amount of pit stops throughout the day that I wasn't speeding. And, everybody else, aside from the handful of guys that got caught, didn't speed either. So I just kind of chalk it up to a mistake on my part, really, at the end of the day, and there's nothing I can do about it. So what does it matter now, really? Just try not to make that mistake again. But there was certainly from how we would typically set our pit road, that had us in a different box than what we would typically be on each weekend. And I just didn't do a great job of keeping that in mind, throughout the race, and ultimately, flashed red in the zone, and that's where on their screen, I didn't feel like I did anything different. I'm not talking about my bubbles. I didn't feel like I did anything different on my end than I had done all day, but just the timing of it and everything else certainly sped in their book, which is they make the rules, right? So off we went.
All right, go ahead, Jeff.
Chase, obviously this 2-week break coming up, the season, every season is always a grind. For your crew guys, people in the shop, how important is it for the industry to be able to get away at this point in the year?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important, and so often I think we forget, about that and just how much of a grind it is, especially for everybody, for you guys. This is a long time on the road, right? I'm sure everybody's looking forward to a couple weeks of not having to travel on Thursday or Friday and getting home late Sunday night and being tired all day Monday, right? It's just it can certainly wear on you, and people have families, they have homes and things that they need to tend to, and certainly I think we all recognize the responsibility when we sign up to come do this, and I'm not disregarding that in any way, but I think for everybody to have a good mental and physical reset is certainly healthy. For everyone involved, and I think it keeps people in a really good headspace as you come back. And I think the happier that everybody is inside the garage, the healthier the sport is as a whole. So I think that ultimately it's a good thing. I also believe that less is more. From a scheduling perspective, I think the more that we spend, time away from the racetrack, the hungrier our fans are to have us come back. And I think you see that with football and some other sports that have a little bit longer break. Man, when it comes back, you're fired up for it, more. So I think some of those things can be exemplified here a little better, but, extremely important to have a break for everybody involved and to just kind of hit that reset button and get ready for the second half.
All right, we'll take one final question from Jordan, and then I got to let Chase go because of practice. So go ahead, Jordan.
Jordan Bianchi, The Athletic. A lot of discussion about NASCAR adding an international race next year, Mexico, Canada. What are your thoughts on that and racing international?
I'm totally good with it. I think it'd be, a lot of fun just to do something a little different. I do think as you kind of going back to Jeff's question about the schedule, when you start racing internationally, you're adding potential travel logistics that we wouldn't typically have. So I think just keeping those things in mind as you are we going to have another weekend backed right up to that, right? Are we going to have to get everybody's passports and get across the border one week and then turn around and get ready to go somewhere else in 5 or 6 days? I think those types of things need to be thought through, but all for it. I have no issues doing anything like that, and I think anytime you can tap into a new market that or a market that hasn't seen a NASCAR race very much. I'm not exactly sure where they're talking about going, but I think it has potential to be good, and also to maybe open up some opportunities to go to places that NASCAR's never been, which I think would really be even better.
All right, Chase, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you the best of luck this weekend.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, there's the checkered flag. Great job, driver.